every month or so, maybe more often. Learn of a company operating here in Minnesota with technology that seems difficult to believe. Now imagine, if you will, a tiny round sanding device that rubs off plaque from the inside of arteries in the leg to treat and prevent vascular diseases without hurting the arteries themselves. It's not just an idea. It's a product called the Diamondback 360, and it is the flagship product of Cardiovascular Systems of St. Paul. It has been used in 600 hospitals on something like 18,000 patients to keep those patients walking, and in many cases to head off the need for leg amputations, and in some cases to ward away death. If you think that creating a device like that is an achievement, you should also know that Cardiovascular Systems became publicly traded at a low point in last year's market. That's even tougher. It's funny. It's a joke. Cardiovascular Systems Executive Vice President Robert Thatcher is here with us tonight, and please welcome him. Robert Thatcher.
Thanks, Jay. I'd like to thank you and Twin Cities Business for hosting the event tonight, and Steve and Peter for sponsoring it. That's very gracious of you. On behalf of the 250 plus CSI employees, I want to express my sincere appreciation for the recognition and to tell you a little bit about CSI, a little bit more than what Jay talked about. So we are a startup medical device, startup kinda. We've been around for 20 years, but it was only about 6 years ago that we figured out what we wanted to be when we grew up. We have a device, as Jay said, that sands away the plaque in the peripheral arteries of your leg, and it runs at up to 200,000 RPMs while it's doing that. So centrifugal force pushes the device out against the artery wall, and because of the properties of diamonds, it actually sands it into small particles that are less than 3 microns in size. So by comparison, your red blood cells are about 7 microns. So it passes through the blood vessel system and is absorbed into the body. Really interesting technology. In August of 2007, we got FDA 510K clearance for the device for peripheral use and started commercializing it in September of 2007. Since then, we're now north of 22,000 patients that have been treated in the United States, and another 50 in India that I'll talk about in a little while. So let me tell you a little bit about peripheral arterial disease. So Joel takes care of the patients, once they get to that point where they don't want to exercise. Jeff takes care of them while they're exercising, and we get the ones that don't exercise, basically. Peripheral artery disease affects 12 million people in this country alone. It's kind of one of those things that you don't hear a lot about because it's not life-threatening, but it is life-changing. So only 2 million people are actually diagnosed with the disease. 1 million of those are medically managed, which is a nice way to say your doctor tells you to change your diet, walk more, quit smoking, and of course we all know what happens when our doctor tells us to do something. Talk about New Year's resolutions. So, out of that 1 million, our biggest competition is amputations. So out of 1 million people that are diagnosed with the disease, 200,000 have their limbs removed. And what's shocking about that is that more than half of those patients never have a simple diagnostic procedure called an angiogram that could eliminate the need for the amputation. So while that in itself is kind of shocking, the cost of amputation is enormous to our healthcare system. So out of those 200,000 procedures a year that are done, the average cost for the patient in the healthcare system is over $250,000 for the procedure and for the post-care associated with it. So about $50 billion a year, of which maybe half of that could be eliminated if this Civil War era technology was not as used as it is. So it's a slow process to change medical practice and behavior, but we work on this on a daily basis. We continue to educate doctors. As Jay said, we're in about 600 hospitals across the country out of the almost 6,000 acute care institutions. So a long way to go in getting more doctors involved with the technology. And we've also had some recent good news. We released today that the FDA has granted conditional approval for CSI to study the Diamondback 360 in the coronary arteries. So that trial will begin about June of this year in the United States. We completed 50 patients in India last year, and that feasibility data was used to support the pivotal trial here in the US. So as we're saving legs and lives, we're also going to save coronary arteries and lives. So again, thank you from all of the employees at CSI, and go Diamondback.